So, Dre, after working with so many different businesses, what's the main thing that you're seeing right now in the marketing world?
I think that the biggest thing right now for 2025 and beyond is you have to be on multiple platforms or have different ways of bringing leads in. We've seen, Google slap after Facebook slap, iOS update after tracking and cookie issues, and it's one thing after another. And what we're seeing this year, especially, you cannot rely on just one platform. If you relied on Google for SEO, well, in the advent of, ChatGPT search functionality and Perplexity and whatever else, you're in an environment where people are doing no-click searches. And so you have to diversify. If you've never done it, this is the year to do it. I'm sure we'll cover a lot more of it as we get into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense. It's not enough just to do that one platform anymore. We're going to be diving deep into this. I'm so excited to have my friend Draye Redfern here. He has worked with some of the biggest household names inside of helping them out with their marketing, from Chris Voss to Peter Diamandis to Benjamin Hardy, Jay Abraham, Daymond John from Shark Tank, just to name a few, and over 1,000 different businesses and business owners through Redfern Media and fractionalcmo.com, which I love the domain name. It's always awesome when you can pick up a great domain name like that. So, Dre, thanks so much for being on.
Happy to be here, man. It's always been a pleasure hanging out with you, and excited to do this today. It'll be a lot of fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's unpack a little bit of what you shared here, because I know you've been in the marketing game for quite a long time. You work with some of the biggest names out there. What are you seeing with that shift? Because I know a lot of people, even watching right now, might be relying on just one platform. What are you seeing right now, especially with some of the big names that you're working with?
Big names have a different benefit that most people don't have, and that's their name. Where they could have a social media following, or they could have something out there, and that's great for a variety of reasons for them. Even they are realizing, holy freaking smokes, the stuff that has worked for the past X amount of years, 1, 3, 5 years, is not working like it used to. Now, some of that is AI related. Some of that is just, changes to algos with Google and Facebook and all of the other sorts of things. But it really is big names to the mom and pop, down the road. Everyone is realizing, I have to be on multiple things, or at least multiple, ways of attracting leads in. It doesn't have to be going and advertising on Facebook. That could be direct mail, which everyone says is dead. Spoiler alert, it's not. It's a lot more alive now than ever. It doesn't matter what the thing is, but in 2025 in particular, we're seeing a lot of our clients having to diversify because lead flow is down, which usually lead flow being down is a leading indicator to revenue being down. So we're encouraging a lot of our clients, people we coach, et cetera, to get out ahead of it more than anything, and begin to optimize some additional lead gen strategies for the business.
Absolutely. And I know we're going to be diving really deep into that here, in this episode. And I'm definitely want to dive in just a second into direct mail, because I know that's one of the things that a lot of people, especially online marketers, are a little wary to dive into. They're like, wait, I have to pay for these postage stamps, all that stuff. But it's really just like advertising, right? You got to spend the money to bring that in. And sometimes zigging while other people zag is going to get you some of the best results. So we're going to dive into that in just a second. But first, I'd love to hear your backstory. I know some of this personally, but for everybody watching or listening, what's kind of the backstory that got you into this world? Now working with some of the biggest names online, what kind of brought you here? What's been your journey like?
I don't have this, rags to riches entrepreneur story that I was like selling, paper routes at age 5 or something like that. But what I did have was a father who immigrated to the US. And he immigrated to the US. He was a golfer with a duffel bag, his golf bag, and $50. And that was it. And eventually went on to start an insurance business. And I was privileged enough to be around the business and work, filing papers and doing all of this stuff, learning the aspects of the business. And at 12, I started really working in it more full time, in summers and things like this. And that proceeded all the way through high school and even college. And when I graduated, I had always had an affinity for marketing, and I began to do more of the marketing for them. And over that period of time, we grew it substantially to have just shy of 9,000 law firms insured across the US, about 1,000 title agents, about 1,000 CPAs, and about 500 real estate agents, doing about $40 million a year in sales. And I was running the marketing for the entire business. And, it's a really cool thing to have had happen. But at the same time, it was one of those things you always try to fight against, the nepotism and all of the other things that exist out in the marketplace. So I was first one in, last one out for, damn near a decade. And But in doing that and building that business, I learned so much about marketing. And I learned about like different lead flow elements and lifetime value and all of these sorts of things. And it was probably in my mid-20s I started my marketing agency, Redfern Media. So there's an overlap here. And we kept growing the insurance agency and eventually sold it to Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway companies. So it's pretty cool to say you built and sold a company to Warren. I had an equity stake in the business. And so it was a great thing to be able to be a part of and, experience. Insurance is great as it is on a residual basis. Not very fun to go like figure out crafting how to sell, insurance solutions. I still have all three of my licenses, my life and health, my property and casualty, and my surplus lines, but obviously not in that space much anymore. And started my marketing agency nearly 15 years ago, I guess, at this point. And that's been really, really great. We've done a lot of big things for a lot of household names and brands, people that, business household names, if you will. And that's been really, really fortunate being inside and sort of under the hood, if you will, how many of these businesses operate. And to a certain degree, it's sometimes like, pay no attention to the wizard behind the curtain. You get to know some of these people and realize this is what's going on behind, like, God, you're like hemorrhaging opportunities. And other people are like absolutely like understated. They're not well-known individuals and they run some of the most incredible businesses out there, but you would never know their name. And so having that ability, having held, I think we're closing in on 1,500 clients that we've had. We've been really fortunate to do a lot of cool things for a lot of cool people and learn a lot. And I also, in conjunction with that, bought fractionalcmo.com probably, 4 or 5 years ago. I bought it and 90 days later, I got offered 800 grand for it. I bought it for 5 grand and got offered 800 grand 90 days later. And I was like, well, if someone's going to pay that much and I haven't done anything with it yet, how much are they going to, be willing to once we actually build it? So that's been one of the big focuses for the last, few years or so, building that up and being much more in a fractional CMO capacity, a high level strategic advisory versus done for you marketing. So same pool of things, marketing services, but sort of different ends of the pool in relation to what we do and how we help people.
Absolutely. And I love it. I remember when you told me that story, and I think this is the classic example of, that entrepreneurship, because you went and bought that domain for $5,000. 90 days later, get an offer for, $800,000. Most people would just take that immediately. It's the same thing. Part of my story is I had like an offer to go to Silicon Valley, equity in a company, do all that. Like when I was just starting out in college, drop out of college. And similarly, just turn it down. And you say, you know what? Let's just build this, because if people want it that much, that means it has value. And let's make it even bigger than the value people are willing to pay today. So I love that story when you first told it to me.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like I didn't tell my wife that for a few months after that. She's like, "You did what?" I'm like, "Don't worry, I got this." But yeah, it's definitely one of those things like, when you're in the thick of it, trying to build something, like, man, maybe that would have been the better move. Entrepreneurship is just so much of just staying with it. And I'm so glad that I did, because it's worth a lot more than that now.
Exactly. Which I love that. And so, I want to dive in just a second, because I really want to explore what it's like working with some of these big names. I mean, some of the biggest people in all these different spaces, from TV personalities like Daymond John to, Jay Abraham, who's like, one of the 4, most like experts in the world of marketing and has been around for such a long time. So I want to talk about all those in a second. But before we get into that, let's cover the fundamentals, because I know you have your anchor framework. Could you break down like what that framework entails, what it looks like, and everything about the anchor framework?
Yeah, certainly. So having been under the hood of a lot of businesses, we began to see similarities in like what, issues that arise. Most businesses have at least 2 of these issues. And an anchor goes as follows: attract, nurture, convert, humanize, optimize, and then retention and recurring revenue. So that is the anchor framework. Most businesses have at least 2 things where they're underperforming or they've completely neglected. The easy one to pin out is something like, attract, like I need leads. That's the sexy stuff that everyone talks about. But if your lifetime value or a client is worth a lot to you, you may need 10 leads a year to have a 7-figure business. So it's not always the sexy stuff that everyone else goes after. What if your retention is like, 100%, 90%, something like that, and you have recurring revenue where you're getting paid every single month? Well, you have something like that, it changes like how the business operates as a whole. So attract, how do you bring in leads? We have 25 methods to which you bring in leads that any business could sort of like, unpack and use in some form or fashion. Nurture, often overlooked by most businesses because, again, the sexy part is let me bring the leads in and then like deuces if you don't buy right now. You're dead to me sort of thing. And so having a nurture sequence, even if it's like we coach people to say, write 52 freaking emails, nurture like a 52-week, 1 year long nurture sequence, write it once, have it be like time or like agnostic where it's not going to be different based on the Easter or Christmas. It's not going to be tech dependent on tech things. So you can basically set it and forget it. We tell them to do that because you build it once. It's a singular action. It's like a stock with a dividend. You can invest in it once and then never have to really think about it again, and you keep getting paid on it. And so what you do at the end of the 52 weeks, whether you're using a Keep or a Go High Level or a MailChimp or whatever, you just tag them to start back at the beginning of the sequence because do you remember an email that you got a year ago? No, nobody does. And if you're a real subject matter expert, like your content's not going to change that much over a year. So that's nurture. Convert is like, there's so many elements of this. And again, it's like, this is where the dollars begin to start coming in. And that could be a conversion online to buy a book or a widget or a tchotchke. That could be a conversion to get a high ticket, sales call on the calendar. Every business has different conversion metrics. The problem is here, most people don't necessarily know what their actual numbers are. What is the actual cost to get a call on the books? What is the actual cost to sell the book? And also figure in your COGS, your cost of goods sold. Like we had a client, like very successful 8-figure, brand. Many people would know of this. I'm not going to say the name. And they're selling a very higher end book. They thought they were crushing, like absolutely printing money on this new offer and book that they had put out there, when in reality, they were hemorrhaging. But there was they were filtering money between businesses. They didn't have the right conversion actual numbers set up in place. And they thought they were good, but they weren't looking at the entire picture of, great, we're spending $200 to get a $250 sale. Yes, but your shipping, your cost of goods sold, your admin fulfillment, your warehouse, and all of that other sort of stuff, they were hemorrhaging. So that's the convert side. We could talk like literally for hours on any one of these. Next is ANCH, is humanize. Most businesses do not have a humanize H to H interaction. It's either B2B that we do or B2C or whatever else. It doesn't matter. We are in an H to H economy, human to human. And so how do you, whether you're selling B2B, B2C, how do you, create that sort of actual relationship with the person on the other end of the Zoom or on the other end of the phone or in person, whatever it is. And one of the easiest things here is nothing new. It's 100-something years old from the book from Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that is, the sweetest sound to someone's ears is the sound of their own name. So Alaric, I use their names all the time, just like that. But it's so simple. And like even on a Zoom, whatever else, but if you offer a service and it's of any value whatsoever, go throw a ClickFunnels or a high level page, clone it, and you could put your onboarding form on there, which says like your name, like we use Redfern Media or fractionalcmo.com / their first name - last name. And that's how we send them their onboarding link. So they're like, holy crap, these people made a website for me. They're seeing their name. They click on that link. It's their name. Welcome Alaric at the top of it. There's a customized video from either me or someone on my team being like, hey, Alaric, Draye Redfern here. Listen, so excited to work together. And so they're seeing it in the URL. They're seeing it in the headline. They're seeing it in the video. People are like, if this is how good you're going to treat me before I'm even a client, what is it like being a client with you? And that sort of humanized relationship goes a long, long ways because the vast majority of our clients, we've never met in person. Like there's no way that I could, physically shake hands and kiss babies with, 1,000, 1,500, clients in person. And so that's humanized. Next is optimized. This is the least favorite for most business owners, actually getting in, knowing the numbers, having dashboards or KPIs or something that is created. Now, garbage in, garbage out. If you trust Facebook and you trust Google and all of the other sort of stuff with the data that they're giving you, you are going to be, shit up creek without a paddle. And it's not a good place to be. You need some sort of third-party attribution if you're running, paid ads, because the platforms will lie to you. If you're doing, keep that loop open, direct mail, you need to know how many phone calls you're getting on that direct mail piece. So that is, having a separate like 800 line or whatever else, so you can see exactly how many calls you've gotten. These things are very, low lift to actually set up, but they give you the data that you actually need to, make more informed decisions to do more of what's working and stop what's not working. And if you know that, then it's not, then it's not rocket science. And then the R in Anchor is retention and recurring revenue. Not every business can have, a retention or recurring offer, but most can. Like as an example, one of the programs that we operate, we have a guy in it who sells like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a tinging thing. And it what it does is you put your gold, bullion coin in there, your silver, whatever else. You drop this little hammer on it, and it will tell you if it's legitimately gold or silver based off of the ting that it provides. That is a one-time thing. Like you can't have retention or recurring revenue on that. So what did he do? He built in a software component to it that will also take that ting sound that you register and show it against other, elements out there, be able to, showcase and say, this has like different metal on the inside of the coin or whatever else. And now he has a SaaS business in conjunction with the product business, and it basically tripled the revenue. And so there's things like that. It's like, I wasn't thinking about it. It's like, I can't see the forest through the trees sort of thing. But having some sort of offer where you can have recurring revenue or really increase the retention. So maybe they're not buying from you every month. Maybe they're coming back year after year. So to use the insurance space as an example, how do you get someone to come back year after year after year? Now, if you're with a big name, and I won't name them because no one wants to get sued, but if you're one of those big name insurance companies, they try to lock you in, and that's how they do it. But no one has, their NPS score, their net promoter score would be very, very low for a business like that. What that means is, how likely are you to refer that company? If you're a 9 or a 10, you're a promoter. If you're a 7 or an 8, you're neutral. If you're a 6 or below, you're a detractor to the brand. Most of those brands are not loved. So what can you do to have some sort of offer out there where they're going to keep coming back year after year? It doesn't need to be an insurance offer, but it could be something else, some other way. Maybe it's an upsell, a downsell, a cross-sell, something to keep them in your ecosystem, because it's 5 times to 25 times more expensive to get a new customer than it is to simply retain an existing one. But that's not sexy. And I love specializing in the not sexy stuff. And that's what we've done for a lot of the clients. So that is Anchor in a nutshell.
That's fantastic. And there were so many golden nuggets inside of that for each of those individual points. And we'll dive a little bit deeper in a second, because I also want to hear how that applies to the different platforms, and how you can actually put that into practice, and some examples diving into that. One thing stood out to me when you mentioned the Humanize side, right? And you talked about the personalized web page. Is that something that you're doing individually? Are you using AI for that, or an automation? What does that look like? I was definitely curious about that.
You could use AI for it and do some sort of automation. We don't, because I don't want to lose the humanized component of it. Yeah. Where if you got something and it said, hello, colon, ampersand, first underscore name or whatever else, that is like the worst thing that could happen. It's like, oh, they're trying to fake it. It's not congruent. It's not genuine, etc. It's so simple. We literally just go into like high level or ClickFunnels, depending on the business, hit clone, swap out the URL slug, which takes 10 seconds, swap out the name in the headline, which takes, changing Bill to John to Alaric. It takes 10 seconds, and that's it. If you're not going to do a customized video, at least it has their name in the URL slug. It has their name on the page. And that feels really, really genuine. We like to do the personalized videos because, it's you see it, you hear it, you can see the energy and the tonation and the all of that sort of stuff that just make it a bit more congruent. We have AI softwares that'll take video from the and swap out names and do all the stuff all automated. Like we do 10,000 of those a month, but there's still some elements of like, if a salesperson's on a sales call, or if I took it or wherever else, I want to readdress something that you said on the call. I mean, like, Alaric, Draye Redfern here. So excited we're going to, move forward and do this. Listen, man, thank you for that recommendation of X, Y, and Z, whatever the hamburger place was that we ate at in New York, whatever it was. Man, I love that so much. I'm going to take my family back there next time we're there. Listen, I'm so excited to move forward. Here's next steps, yada, yada, yada. Now, that means that like I was paying it. I addressed you by your name. I was paying attention. I
Mhm.
thanked you for the actual thing, whatever that is. That could be, restating something they told you on the call to reaffirm that you were actually listening to them. It doesn't really, it doesn't really matter. But people want to feel seen and they want to feel heard. And if you can work that into some sort of onboarding for a whopping 2-minute video, it's, you get a lot of benefit and residual from it. In fact, we've gotten clients because other people who signed up for us, like, you just need to go through their process because like it's going to change your world. And then we literally got clients literally from people just going through our process, loving it, referring other people to it just because, of how different it was from everyone else out there. And so it's just little things like that, like the old saying, small hinges swing big doors. I want to layer as many small hinges and things as I can to make a more profound impact.
Great. That's great. And I'm glad that I asked too, because I think in today's, day and age, we'll talk more about AI marketing in a second. I know you have a lot of different, strategies in that side, and you shared some at one of the other events that we were both at, but we'll dive into that in a second. But the Humanize strategy really is that human touch. And I think that's really great that you're creating and crafting those personalized videos and websites and really having that connection. So that's really valuable looking at that side of things. And we'll also tell the hamburger story in a second. It's a pretty funny one. So we'll keep people on their toes for that. That said, we do want to dive in and talk about the different platforms. And let's start off with some of the standard, platforms that we all know about. And then we'll end in the platform side of things with the direct mail that we've been teasing for a little bit here. But how does this anchor framework fit into these different platforms? What are you seeing? What are some of the strategies, tactics you're seeing work the best right now with your clients?
So I would say every platform works, but you have to make it work for you. And not all of them will work for you. And so there's so many examples I could probably pull from. You're seeing ad costs go up across the board in the last 12 to 18 months. That is just the nature of the beast. And for some certain businesses, that makes their offer no longer viable, especially if you're doing some sort of low ticket thing or selling ebooks or whatever the scenario is. It's making their offer no longer viable. So like I said, you could do Meta, you could do Google, you could do, anything else. They can all work, but you need to make sure that it's the right platform for you and for the offer that you want to go to market with. If there's some sort of misalignment in there, it makes it easy for you to just take a wad of cash, set it on fire, and not get any real results. So they all work. Costs are going up and they're lying more now than ever. That's why any client we work with, whether we pay for it on the fractional CMO side or Redfern Media, or we recommend they get their own, have some sort of attribution software. Hyros is the name everyone knows about, but there's other really good ones out there that are, a lot less expensive, like a ClickMagick, where for, $70 or $80 for a month versus, 5,000 or 8,000 for the year, you can get something very, very comparable. And so if you're spending any decent amount of money on traffic, those are things that you need to just do. Just the cost of doing business, trying to get leads in the door, et cetera. That we're also seeing a lot more people go to cross or different platform JVs, non-competing JVs. So we had a very large consultancy in the legal space doing 30 million a year or so. They were going after software companies and other providers to attorneys in order to basically cross-pollinate, do co-branded webinars, these sorts of things, because maybe one of their clients over here, the thousands of clients they had, would buy the software, and you're tapping into the software market as well. So we're seeing a lot more things like that because 1 + 1 can equal 3. And there's essentially no cost in really doing it unless you're having to hire talent or something along those lines. So we're seeing a lot more of that right now layered into things, just simply because you can control the output better. You know what email list opens are, click-through rates, average event attendance or webinar registration. You know all of those things. And those are pretty quick to spin up. Some of our clients are doing one of those every 10 days. So every month they're doing 3 of those big co-branded events, basically 30 across the year. So it's even things like that. It doesn't have to just be this thing or that thing. It's like I said, it's an amalgamation of many different things, and that's what we're seeing work now more than ever. Direct mail being one of those, because the sexy stuff is what everyone is going after. All of the shiny objects. I will the playing in the pool of JV deals for non-competing industries or direct mail. That's the stuff where people's mailboxes are empty and their email inboxes are full. So how can I play a different game? That's where ultimately where we're seeing the most success.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And with the JVs, and then I want to dive deeper into the direct mail side, but with the JVs that you're seeing right now, I think a lot of people, they hear about those and it makes sense, but they don't know where to start or where to go or who to approach to do those types of deals. What are you seeing as the best places to find those JVs, some of the best ways that those are set up? What does that look like?
Every business is going to be different. If it were me and it was a business that was doing, let's just say 500,000 a year. So they're well on their way, but they're not quite to the point where they've reached critical mass. So let's use someone like that. So they're probably not well known. And let's just like pick a niche of like health coaching. Very big niche there. So I've got about $500,000 a year and I'm doing in a health coaching niche. So is everyone else and their mother. Like it's such a saturated niche. What you could do is go after all of the people who are launching apps on the App Store in that niche. Pull all of the data. Apple releases all of it. You can find it online. And then reach out to their PR team. Reach out to their whatever else. You can have, like most businesses have a lead person or a setter or something along those lines. And if you don't, go hire someone in India or the Philippines for $5 or $8 an hour to go source that data. And then when they do that, you have a whole email database of all, these are all of the apps that launched in the last 6 months. They want new app downloads. You want people for your coaching program. Go after all of those people. Like that's a simple place to start. You could also like do Google searches. You can use tools like, clay.com for like data enrichment. So if you have a list, you can use a tool like that to really beef it out, either depth or breadth of the information that's there. Just pull it and then email them. And, it's a numbers game, just like ads, like, oh, my CPMs are down, my cost per thousand impressions or whatever else. Cool. It's also a numbers game when it comes to reach outs and like cold messaging like that. You can do LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a cesspool of just people getting pitched left and right. You can, try and email them. And that's probably where I would start first. If you put 2 or 3 emails out there and you don't get replies, I shoot them something in the mail. You're like, hey, is this something that you would even be interested in? Shoot me a quick note back. Very, very low, usually handwritten in like, god awful kind of handwriting. And things like that work because there's a sense of reciprocity where I don't owe you anything if you email me. If you send me something in the mail and I can clearly tell that it's handwritten, I'm like, I'll at least email you and tell you no. And so just you play on a different playing field when it comes to things like that. So that's at least a few ways that I would go about starting it. There's, list brokers galore, but I usually try to build my own list in whatever, avenue that you're going down.
Absolutely. And with the direct mail side, so you started diving into that with the handwritten notes, but what are you seeing kind of more at scale on the direct mail side, or what are you seeing is working best with the different clients that you're implementing that strategy into their businesses?
Everything works. It's just a matter of, does it work for you? So the whole thing of like EDDM, every door direct mail, many people have gotten this. They have no idea what it's actually called. It's you get that piece of mail and it says postal customer. You're like, okay, well, how something like that works is you go to uspostal.com. You say, I want my piece of mail to be delivered to the most expensive zip code, but only the streets on the most expensive zip code. So I live in Dallas in an affluent area. And so I could say, I want to go after all of the people in the Highland Park zip code, where especially these streets, because I have a window washing or landscaping service. Boom. Now I'm going after the very most, affluent people with a landscaping offer. And I'm going to do that not once. I'm going to do that, every other week or every month at a bare minimum, staying top of mind because, if it's the middle of winter, I don't really care about my grass right now because everything's dead. But in 3 months, when it's keeping up with the Joneses and you got a green yard and I don't, who am I going to call if that thing hits at the right time? So it's a timing thing at the same time. So that's if you're like a physical, you're offering a service on site. If you're not and you want to drive something, digitally to a high ticket sales call or something like that, the law of threes. It has to be mailing them 3 times. First out of the gate, we'll normally send them a blank number 10 envelope with handwriting, like their name and address on the outside of it. our return address also handwritten, and then a stamp. Because if they see typical indicia, like it's printed out, whatever else, like bulk mail, they're like, I'm throwing that in the trash. I want them to be like, what the hell is this thing? And like god awful handwriting, and be like, all right, I'm at least going to open it. It's those little like the scroll stopping things that you can see on various platforms on advertising. Same sort of thing, but in someone's home. So how do I get them to open it? Make it look like it's from someone else. So it's not coming from Draye Redfern at fractionalcmo.com with my full address. It's just coming from Draye with my return address. There's no corporate anything on the outside of it because that's not going to get it open. Then usually a one-page sales letter on the inside saying like, hey, are you interested in doing this? This is what we have. Very, very top of funnel. Also one of the least expensive things to do. Second, we'll normally do a handwritten note. Like we send thousands and thousands of these a month, and we can get into this as a whole thing. But there's so many ways to skin that cat. We send thousands of these a month. I never lift my pen. Like I don't write any of these things. We use either robots that we've bought for the various businesses that write them for us. We'll use other services out there to do this. And that's a great second, tool that exists. Third, the most expensive is like the piece de resistance sort of thing of a mailer is, and you can only do this if you're selling a higher end sort of something, not like a, $50 ting metal, checker. And that's doing some sort of either lumpy mail where you're sending them like a, 9 by 12 envelope and it's got something in it. So if you're selling legal services, you could send a gavel, like a squish ball gavel, because it's going to add depth to that mailer, and it's going to be light. So you're not going to pay a lot more for postage. And they're going to see this with all their other mail. They're going to see this big thing popping out in the middle of it. They're going to open that dang thing first. That's one. You could do video brochures where the moment they open this little package, a magnetic switch ends up tripping and it starts playing a video being like, hey, Alaric, Draye Redfern here. I just wanted to send you this in the mail to get your attention because of, X, Y, Z, insert thing here. And those are really cool, way more expensive, but certain things like that now have IoT technology in them, Internet of Things, where it has essentially a cellular data chip in it. So if I send Alaric, if I sent you a box like this, then I would know in my Google Data Studio the exact moment that you opened it and how many minutes of this direct mail piece you actually watched of it. And then you closed it. And then you opened it again and watched the entire thing. And then you closed it and opened 30 seconds and closed it. And opened it 45 seconds and closed it. You get all of that data. So if I sent something to Alaric and I sent something to John Doe and John Doe opened it for 10 seconds and closed it, who do you think that I'm going to have my sales team go after and call first? John Doe or Alaric? And the answer is so blatantly clear, but it's like it's marrying offline direct mail with online and doing it in a way that's seamless, it's frictionless, and it just makes it easy to just beget a conversation while also having that humanized component. Hey, Alaric, Draye Redfern here. I wanted to get this in your hands because I wanted to get your attention because, again, marrying in more of those things from the anchor framework. So that's at least high level what I would do on a direct mail campaign.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I love breaking it down, the different ways that you do it. And it can get more and more personalized all the way to a video or some little gift that you're sending people. And you can get really creative with that. And especially the video mailers. I know we've taken a look at that. We haven't dove into that yet, but you're giving me some ideas here. You're giving me
for
some
the
ideas.
Right type of offer. It's a hell yes. It's not cheap. Like you can expect to spend anywhere between like $11 and $50 per box. But if you're selling a high ticket offer and you know what your numbers are, again, what are you optimizing for? Do you know what the numbers are? It's a very easy thing to make the economics of that one.
Absolutely. Wow. So that definitely delivered, was worth the wait on, diving into the direct mail side. And what I want to kind of dive into next is how AI is affecting everything. And I think it's actually kind of funny because we went to direct mail, which is a strategy that's been around for a long time. And it's kind of what's old is new again. And what a lot of people don't do is going to be your advantage. But also on the exact opposite side is the cutting edge, which is AI. And I was at an event and you shared a bunch of different ways you're leveraging AI in all kinds of different areas, especially to do with your anchor framework. So how does AI play into everything? What are some examples of AI and how people can use that inside of their marketing?
So I'll say like most people are like, it's so funny. The amount of conversations we have, we're like, I'm like a chat GPT expert. And I'm like, well, what do you do with it? And I'm like, well, I have it write blog post or a copy or something. Like, cool. And that's awesome. Like, that's a thing that you should be using it for. But it's so much deeper than that of what you could do. Like, one of the things I talk a lot about is most of the time for businesses, they are having their sales calls recorded. And if that's the case, then you should take that recorded sales call, have a transcript of it, and you could do that on Otter or rev.com, or Zoom will do it itself, but a lot of times these days, depending on your level, and take that transcript and just put it into a master Google Doc where you can have all of your sales calls that have basically been transcribed, and then throw that into ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or Bard or Gronk, whatever you want to use, and have it basically aggregate, and you ask it questions. Hey, for the deals that we won, and this was the objection, what was the most effective way that objection was overcome? And then it'll give you, it's going to go through all that data very, very quickly. And it's going to give you, hey, when you got this objection, your sales team was the most effective by handling that objection with this phrase or whatever it is. So that's an example. But you could do the same thing with, other than just content. There's so many ways to do additional advertising angles, different copy. If you're split testing copy, which if you should be split testing, again, back to optimizing. Like, I could talk on this for days and days, because most people are using AI, but they're not using AI to its full potential. Like, we just came back from Park City. We're skiing there with my wife and my kids, hanging out. I didn't plan any of the stuff that we did. Basically plugged it into Perplexity. I said, do all this research for me, figure out where I should go. What are the places that have the easiest way to get into reservations with a family, with young kids? Like, outline the whole thing for me and give me the links. So all I had to do is then take that, I give it to my assistant, and the entire thing is planned in 60 seconds, and reservations are made within 5 minutes after that. So it takes so many things and makes it way, way easier and faster. I would say we were one of the first users of Jasper, which was an initial early thing of OpenAI before it was public, whatever else. We were one of those first beta people. And so this is 5 years ago. And so most people are really talking about AI in the last 18 months or 24 months. And I still think that the vast majority of the market hasn't even begun to crack the surface of what is truly capable out there from, data, research, analysis, aggregating things. It doesn't really matter what, there's so many ways you could do it. But I think that one of the things that we installed in my company was every Friday at noon, take the afternoon off. If you need to, if you have to, doctor's appointment, whatever else. But what I would really like you to do is from noon till the end of the day, go play. Go research, go play with the AI stuff, try different things. We'll pay for it, the various tools. And that has given us a competitive advantage, because my team is so much more versed on AI than practically anyone else out there. Because, hey, I did this and this worked great. That service everyone's talking about is awful compared to this thing that's a golden, a nugget in the rough sort of thing. And so just if you have a team or a bandwidth or whatever else, it doesn't need to be half a day every week, but give them some free reign to go play and learn, because it'll just make the organization that you have so much more, beneficial, better run, way more efficient as time goes on.
I love that. I think definitely really encouraging your team to dive in and start utilizing AI is just going to pay off so much more down the road. And it's the same thing with my team as well, is getting them excited about using different AI tools and integrating that into the workflow and keeping that innovation culture. So I love that. So I'm curious what it's like working with all of these different big names inside of the online space. Chris Voss, Peter Diamandis, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, Jay Abraham, Daymond John, all these amazing people and many more. What's that experience been like? What are some of the things that you can share? Maybe not about specific people, but what are you seeing with some of these bigger brands and influencers and businesses that you're working with?
Oh, it's a good question. I would say most of them are really great people, at least the people that we've worked with. I have a pretty high filter. We have 2 policies in our company. I'll tell you the first one. And the first one is no assholes. We have a no asshole clause. And, even in the early days where I was I really need this account to make payroll or do the thing or whatever else, if they were, had that sort of tendency, I would charge them 2 or 3 times more. Because then if I got it and they were an asshole, I'd be all right, it's worth it. But if I didn't, be they were an asshole, I didn't want to have it anyway. Most of the people that we take on fit that criteria. If they don't, then it's one of these things that just life is too short to work with, bad, annoying, or underappreciating people. Like we had a client, a handful of months ago who made one of my project managers cry. Tough woman who worked for a very big company in the marketing space that you would know, and made her cry. Like, not okay. And they had a bad day, which I get, but you don't like have to berate anyone. They were fired the next day. Like, I don't need that sort of stuff. So most of the bigger personality brands are good people. Very few of them are like the, wizard from the Wizard of Oz, where, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain sort of thing. Some of them definitely are that, where you open up, you're like, this is what's going on. Like, what the heck? And you like really get under the hood and you're like, this is a disaster. And I obviously won't name names, but some of them are certainly like that. But most of them are really, really good people. They genuinely want to help. And they want to expand the reach. That's the common thread, across all of them. But someone like, Ben Hardy, he's been a dear friend of mine for, 8 years. We've been working together. Like his previous year that before we started working, I think he made $71,000. Our first year working together, he made $1.2 million. Now that's not a testament to like, no, results not guaranteed sort of thing. But it's one of those things where the right person with the right message helping the right person, like the right who, not how, because eventually he went on to write the book, Who, Not How, 1 + 1 can equal 3. And so I look more than anything for people who are congruent. And if they're not congruent, like you and I, Jill, we're the same people on camera versus off. Like, a bunch of goobers is what we are. But for people who have the facade and they get on stage and do one thing and they hop off and they're like a completely different person, not my type of character, not my type of person. That's just not the type of people we work with. So most of them are great, really good people that just, they have goals like the rest of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's definitely been my experience as well. And what I want to talk about in just a second, after we dive into, how people can find you, we'll share the Hamburger story, which we have to share. We just have to. We can't do this without sharing that. And I think it'll be a lot of fun for everybody listening. But then we also will dive into some of what you're seeing with some of those bigger brands that's a little bit different, and how people can apply some of what you found to their own companies, even if they're not that size. I definitely am curious to hear about that. We're going to cover that in a few more golden nuggets in a second. But I always like to just ask, you've shared so much value, knowledge, information. Where can people find you? We know one of the domains because it's so good, fractionalcmo.com. But where can people find you? What are the best resources that you want to share with everybody listening?
Yeah, I mean, fractionalcmo.com is certainly one of them. We've got a diagnostic tool that people can go there and play with and literally diagnose their business in 10 minutes or less. I'll tell you exactly what part of the anchor framework you're most efficient in. Redfern Media, red like the color, fern like the plant. I am a rapper and a book. I am Dr. Draye, Where the Red Fern Grows. It's how most people end up remembering it, but it's red like the color, fern like the plant, redfernmedia.com. And then I'm on all the socials at Draye Redfern. I have not been very active as a marketer who's done a lot of cool things for a lot of cool people. Very bad at self-promotion. So one of these days I'll get around to being better at it. But yeah, at Draye, Draye, red like the color, fern like the plant on all the platforms.
Excellent. Definitely encourage everybody, go check out Draye, everything that he's working on. And again, we're going to be diving into a couple more golden nuggets in just a second, so do not go anywhere. But I also want to remind you, if you're listening to the Marketing Minds podcast, you like diving in deep into marketing, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, also on Spotify. We've got video on Spotify as well. We're also on Apple Podcasts and all of the major podcast places. Also, make sure you sign up for the Marketing Minds newsletter. We'll post that down below. We're sending out weekly newsletters where we share a lot of value in the world of marketing. All right, so we've teased this a little bit. I'm going to jump in with a little bit of a story, but I want to get your perspective with the Hamburger. We teased that. You brought it up, so I have to close the loop on that. Then I want to dive into some of what you're seeing with those bigger names and how that can apply to what people are doing, even if they don't have the same degree of following, because I think it's always interesting to learn from that. And then any final golden nuggets that we have that you want to share. But this is funny because we were just out. We were just in Park City, but at a different event. But a couple months ago, back in December, we were out in New York City, and the event, one of the events that had just the day had wrapped up, and they had some little food things here and there, but we're like, we got to get something to eat, and it's kind of like snowing / like raining a little bit, cold rain. It's in the middle of December, and we're like, all right, where do we go? And then it hit me. And this is just an example of how marketing is so valuable. You talked about the 52-week email sequence, we'll try multiplying that by many years because, go back in time, 2019, I was in New York City and I was there with a few friends and I stumble upon a place called Five Napkin Burger. And I go in there and delicious burger. So if you're in New York City, go check it out. By the way, this just goes to show having something of substance and of value that leads to word of mouth. So you back that up with marketing, it's going to do well. So anyways, delicious burger. And so the waiter comes up and says, hey, if you sign up for our email list, the next time you come in, you're going to be able to get free fries. And, all you got to do is just put in your email information. So it sounds like a great deal. So I sign up and, sure enough, 2020 happens. So I'm not going back. Then I end up in 2021 moving out to Austin, Texas. So I'm not going to New York as much as I used to. Used to live in Massachusetts. So I went there more often. And so, but every day, every week, I get an email from Five Napkin Burger. Every week, the new burger of the week, the new thing. And it goes to my promotions tab. But ever so often, some of them hit the primary inbox. And I also see it there because sometimes I like to scan, I like to read, as a marketer, some of the different things. And it pops up. And so every single week for 5 years, I get an email from Five Napkin Burger. And now I'm looking at this, that burger looks great. That burger, and then it becomes a joke. And I tell other people like, hey, I'm on this email list, this burger company. So I think of it that night. I say, we have to go to Five Napkin Burger. I pull up my phone and I'm like, look at all these emails. I'm not making this up. It's been emailing me for years. And then we go and it was fantastic, a fantastic burger. But it just shows the power of marketing and staying in front of people because there is a 0% chance, maybe not zero, but like a 0.1% chance we would have gone to Five Napkin Burger 5-6 years later if I hadn't consistently gotten those emails. And in fact, we almost went somewhere else, right? And the reason we went was because of that marketing and top of mind. I don't know, Draye, if there's anything to add to that story from your perspective.
No, it was hey, we're hungry. Guys, I've got the place. This is where we're going. I was like, there's 5 other, maybe a dozen other burger places in between where we were in that place. And so we went way out of our way because Alaric got a whole bunch of emails from this company, and it lived up to the hype, I must say. And he got his fries a whopping 5 years later, those free fries.
Exactly. And so I think that's just a great kind of, story that just talks about how the power of marketing all comes together. And just had to share it because it was a cool experience. And next time I'm back in New York, or actually I think we're back with that same mastermind, there in this next December. Might need to make it back for sure to
round
to
2
Napkin Burger round 2. And so, okay, so I want to dive into this final question I have for you, and then any other golden nuggets you want to share to round out the episode. But the final question I have is: you're working with a lot of these people that have these big brands. What are you seeing with those different brands and the marketing that you're doing that is creating the biggest splash? And then what can people who maybe don't have as big of a brand take away? It's kind of a 2-part question from that.
If they're advertising, massive amounts of creative. I won't say who, but again, a name not on the list that you mentioned, but a name that people would know. We, at any one time, have between 60 and 100 pieces of creative out per platform. Just throwing a lot out there because some of the ugliest stuff sticks. Some of the best looking stuff sticks. And you never really know where that line is going to be. So a whole bunch of different things. That's one thing because audiences have changed and lookalikes are using 1% or 3% and all the sort of minutia that's going to change week by week. But in general, one of the things for especially the bigger brands in the last probably 6 to 12 months is just massive amounts of creative and testing. We joke and some of the other things we're a part of that in any other field, it's called failure. But in marketing, it's called testing. And embrace the heck out of it because, if we launched 1 or 2 or 3 creatives for somebody, cool, maybe we have success. But if I've got, 60 different versions or more of something to play with, really what is working and what's not. Yeah, you got to have a budget behind it. So you get all the people out there that'll say, well, but, yes, that's why this is not a blanket statement. But things like that. But yeah, we have big personality brands. But even the person like the mom and pop down the street, like we've worked with financial advisors and law firms and health coaches and all sorts of other people doing more creative. Because ad fatigue now is higher than ever from what we're seeing. And it's just like people like the second they see your face, they're like scrolling or their face in the same exact position or whatever it is, walking or the red couch behind you, like doing whatever the thing is, changing it up so there's more variety. Whether you're the mom and pop on, on Main Street or some of the publicly traded companies we work with, everyone in between is doing more creative these days.
Absolutely. I think that's a really valuable lesson, because the thing is, testing, you test it against the control, there are going to be things that beat that. And so it's just, one of those things that a lot of marketers know, that maybe people who are getting into it, they don't really realize that by testing and having a lot of what others would deem as failures, but really you can call learning lessons, it's going to have the cream naturally rise to the top. The best performers are going to be up there, and you're going to be able to use those and double down on it and scale. So that is really, really wise words. And anything else that you want to share? Any other golden nuggets? Anything we didn't hit here that you want to share? Any parting words for everybody who's listened to this episode?
In the advent of AI and all of these sorts of things, do put more things out there. That's a book. If you've been putting the book off, write the dang book. Like, I've written 3 books. I'm on my 4th book. I think you can only buy one of them on Amazon, maybe 2 of them. I don't know. Books for me have never, like the only people who really make money on books are like the Obamas or Kardashians or someone like that, Write the dang book. The amount of speaking gigs that I've gotten because I have a book, and this is something I took from Jay Abraham like 10 years ago. I would buy, so someone's like, hey, we're interested. Or like, hey, I'd like to speak at your event, whatever else. In doing this, I will personally buy a copy of my book for every one of your attendees. So it adds more value to the promoter of like, hey, like they'll buy a copy of their book. Like, I'll gift it to you, that sort of thing. And you do that on top of it. And then, but really more than anything is that book is your sales letter on every person's seat, on every attendee, whatever else. So of course it makes the promoter look good, but it makes you look good as well. So if you haven't written the book, 2025 should be your year to do that. Maybe it goes on Amazon, maybe not. I've made hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars from a book that was, very, very tiny. It took me 4 days from start to finish to write, pre-AI. Like, it has a long tail effect. So that's one of them. Not a sexy one. People know like books exist. That's certainly one of them. The other thing is, when it comes to marketing, we normally tell our clients or people that we advise, do something new every quarter. That doesn't need to be a new ad, like a new ad set, new platform, but change it up. If you're only running Google ads, run Facebook ads. And if you're only running Facebook ads, run YouTube ads. If you're only doing, if you're doing all of those things, but you haven't done direct mail because you tried it one time, 18 years ago, and you said direct mail never works and it's never going to work again, don't be that guy or gal. Throw some direct mail in there. I think in this world, it's a constant evolving, like 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, making it equal something significantly greater. But we cannot get out of the frame of just ongoing testing, ongoing of trying new things. And so that would be the other thing, is like not as sexy like as a tactic, but definitely a strategic thing where every quarter say like, okay, what is the objective for this quarter? What is new that we're going to try? Now, 3 out of 4 times over the year, that thing's probably not going to hit. But that one time, you may be like, how was I missing this for the last 5 years? And how much money did I leave on the table by not doing insert name here? And so it's more of a frame of mind, I would say, but we do use it as a quarterly framework. So if I were to leave anyone with 2 like sort of passy things, write the book and test something at least every quarter.
I love it. I love it. Both of those really, really valuable. It's also a perfect time for me to say I'm going to be releasing the Video Authority book very soon as you're watching this podcast episode. So taking your advice, Draye, right off the bat, I'll put a link down below to either pre-orders or if it's out. I think it's going to be right before it comes out. So Video Authority, the art and science of converting viewers into clients, coming out very soon.
If only it had a really sexy name to it.
And I also love how we came full circle. What you said at the beginning of the episode is don't just rely on one platform, one channel to take that multi-channel approach. We say omnipresent approach as well. I wholeheartedly agree. And you gave some great examples of that, gave some amazing frameworks, the Anchor framework to utilize. Really appreciate having you on here, Draye. This has been fantastic. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, but happy to help. This is a lot of fun and hopefully it's valuable to the listeners.
Thank you.